Welcome back to Building Character, where we figure out how to play as your favorite fictional characters in Dungeons & Dragons. Join the Patreon for this character sheet and a whole bunch more, and like and subscribe for a better sense of direction next time you play. Maybe. Today we're building Zagreus from Hades, also from Greek mythology, but mostly from Hades. You might notice this video's a little long. That's because I think it's very in character to have a few different options for this one. We'll be doing the right version first though, or die trying. Maybe both.
It's tough to be a god, bred where mortals have not trod.
Let's start off with our goals for this build. For Shazam, we needed the powers of 6 mythological figures. For Zagreus, we need an entire pantheon. I'm talking Zeus, Ares, there isn't a G one, never mind. Next, we need to die. Actually, scratch that, we need to not die. Not dying is much better, and it lets us keep trying to escape. Finally, we'll be a dashing young man, who's actually immortal, not young, but will also actually be dashing. Hi everyone, I'm Zagreus' cousin, Zagreus. Here to talk to you about today's sponsor, Surfshark VPN. Surfshark is a virtual private network that encrypts your data and keeps it safe while you're browsing the internet. Almost like the boons of Athena, another cousin of mine. By disguising your location with Surfshark VPN, you can also access streaming services in other countries that might have different libraries than the ones in your area. So if you were in Olympus and wanted to watch Underworld Netflix because they have the Underworld movies, you could do that. Now, I know you're thinking this works on what, one device? Actually, Surfshark works on an unlimited amount of devices. So your smartphone, your tablet, your gaming console, anything that runs the internet, Surfshark can run and protect you, with no limits to how many devices you're using. Surfshark VPN is even offering a special deal for Tulok subscribers. If you click the link in the description, you can get 83% off and 3 months free. So get your protection on, get your streaming on, and stay safe out there, folks. Now back to the video. For stats, we'll be using the standard point array from the player's handbook. Roll for stats if you want, just watch those multi-classing minimums. We're going to start off with wisdom. Relating to your family members isn't about charisma, it's a natural intuition, especially when your family members are gods. Dexterity after that, you're great with all of your weapons, and some of them are ranged. Charisma next. The real reason you're trying to break the surface is because you've already matched with everyone on Underworld Tinder, let's be honest. Follow that up with strength. Even if we're mostly using finesse weapons, you do have the power of a god. Constitution is a bit low. You do die a lot though, to be fair. You're doing very dangerous stuff. We'll dump intelligence though. You don't know your Greek mythology, and you're part of Greek mythology. Hot take number 1. Are we an asphodel? Because it's super hot. Zagreus is the son of Hades, so he's gotta be an Aasimar, right? Well, let me ask you this. Does he do anything an Aasimar does? Does he cast light? Does he heal people with his hands? Does he have a rage mode that makes him grow a wing and deal extra damage or shoot lasers everywhere? No. Then that's why he's not an Aasimar, because he doesn't do things Aasimars do. Do we agree on that? I can't hear you, not how the internet works. But we're going to use custom lineage instead to get some things that Zagreus actually does, like using the Fey Touch feat for your special fiery feat. It lets you cast Misty Step to teleport 30 feet as a bonus action. The dash is one of very few abilities in the game that Zagreus just has, so I like grabbing it from your background. You can also grab a spell of first level of your choice that's enchantment or divination. Hunter's Mark lets you pick a creature to deal an extra d6 of damage to with your weapon attacks, and you have advantage on checks to track that creature for an hour. Artemis has a boon that's literally called Hunter's Mark. It doesn't do this, but she does give you boons that help you deal more damage. Both of those spells can be cast once per day for free, but then with spell slots later when you get spell slots, which you will. You also get +1 to your wisdom, since that's what I wanted, and +2 to your dexterity from custom lineage, because that will make your weapons as potent as your boons. Today we're actually going to take dark vision instead of the free skill. The underworld isn't particularly well lit, and the athlete background for athletics and acrobatics proficiency. Low intelligence, athletic skills. Are we making a himbo? We've got to be the first people to make a bisexual himbo with heterochromia and parental issues in D&D history. I'm kidding, that's like half my characters. We'll kick things off as a cleric because you get your powers from gods. There's a few different ways to do that in D&D. Celestial warlocks get literal boons, a fantastic death-defying ability that also makes you explode with radiant damage, and have preciously few spell slots, just like Zagreus' precious few casts. Divine Soul Sorcerers can learn all the cleric spells and all the sorcerer spells, so the variety is off the charts. So why the heck would I use cleric instead? There's a few reasons, but the most important one comes right away. Unlike warlocks and sorcerers, clerics get to pick their spells at the start of the day rather than when they level up. Every trip through Hades is a little different than the last one. This will give us the most flexibility. Take insight and persuasion for your skills of choice so you can convince people to help you get out of hell. One issue with being a cleric is the lack of weapon proficiency and elemental spells, so thankfully Thankfully, we can go Tempest Domain to solve a couple of those issues with some extra spells and weapons. You also get heavy armor proficiency, but sun's out, guns out. You know? Well, I guess you don't know. You've never seen the sun. You get some free spells from Tempest Domain. Fog Cloud creates a fog in a 20-foot radius that heavily obscures the area for an hour depending on your concentration. No word on whether or not it gets your enemies drunk, but it should make them less accurate. Thunder Wave forces a Constitution saving throw on creatures in a 15-foot cube, dealing 2d8 thunder damage to those that fail, half as much to those that succeed. It also pushes them back 10 feet. Poseidon is such a fun set of boons. It's not. I wrote this while I was trying to make a Poseidon run work. It didn't go well. Again, both of these spells are free from Tempest. The rest of the spells you can make from a list equal to your wisdom modifier plus your cleric level per long rest. But I'm just gonna grab all the ones that I think you could possibly grab as Zagreus. Bane forces a charisma saving throw on up to 3 creatures. Failing that, they have a d4 penalty to attack rolls and saving throws for some more physically hungover shades. Cure Wounds heals 1d8 plus your wisdom modifier to a creature as an action. One of the first investments from Nyx is a little healing between encounters. Healing is nice after all. Shield of Faith adds 2 to the AC of a creature for up to 10 minutes depending on your concentration. It's never bad to have Athena in your corner, especially if you find yourself in a lot of corners. Protection from evil and good gives a creature some protection from evil and good, meaning aberrations, celestials, elementals, fiends, fae, and undead have disadvantage to hit you. They can't charm, possess, or frighten you. That Hermes auto dodge is nice, and Lord knows you're fighting a lot of undead. Detect evil and good lets you sense all of those evil and good things if you want to add a little chaos to your life. Guiding Bolt fires one of Artemis's arrows with a ranged spell attack that deals 4d6 radiant damage and gives the next person attacking the creature advantage on their attack roll. Could be you, could be Thanatos. He's pretty good at stealing kills. It's like he's the god of killing people. Tempest Clerics also get Wrath of the Storm, letting you use your reaction to lash out at creatures that hit you, dealing 2d8 thunder damage or lightning damage if they fail a dexterity saving throw, half as much on a success. That will add Zeus to the list, with Poseidon, Dionysus, Athena, Hermes, and Artemis as options for your first attempt. Of course, you're probably going to die unless you just don't get hit. For cantrips, resistance will help you not get hit, letting you give a creature a d4 to add to their next saving throw. Word of Radiance will just kick the baddies off you, forcing a Constitution saving throw on creatures within 5 feet of you, and dealing a d6 of radiant damage to those that fail. For your basic cast shot, I think Toll the Dead works pretty well, dealing 1d8 necrotic damage to a creature that fails a wisdom saving throw, or 1d12 if they're missing hit points. Thanatos probably taught you how to round things down. But if you want to stop the baddies from rounding you down, and also add the Twin Fists of Malphon to your arsenal, jump over to Monk. Monks get martial arts, letting you make unarmed attacks with your dexterity modifier, dealing 1d4 bludgeoning damage, and you can wield monk weapons with your dexterity. That's any simple melee weapon without the heavy or two-handed property. A spear would work for Varatha. You could use a short sword for the Stygian blade, though you already could, and a light hammer for the Aegis shield. I know that hammers aren't shields, but monk weapons are deliberately reflavored weapons, and we'll even get a way to block with our hammer later, so it's a pretty dang solid option for a melee weapon you can use to bludgeon someone, or you can throw at someone. Malphon attacks are the fastest though, since you can make an unarmed attack as a bonus action after you attack with a monk weapon, or unarmed attack with your action. Mixing this with the Hunter's Mark boon from Artemis will mean 3d4 plus 3d6 plus your dexterity modifier per round. You're really carving your way through the lower denizens of heck. You can also get unarmored defense, making your AC 10 plus your dexterity and wisdom modifier when you're not wearing armor, making sure that your torso is metaphorically shredded rather than physically shredded. Second level monks get dedicated weapon, letting you make martial weapons monk weapons if they're not heavy or special, adding a long sword for a better Stygian blade, a short bow for Coronacht, or a light crossbow for Exograph. You can only pick one per short rest, so you'll have to pick one weapon per run. The martial arts, the dedicated weapon, the unarmored defense are why I picked monk instead of a different martial class. So everything we have so far, everything about monk is why I picked monk. I know people like to complain about monks, but if everything fits, I'm gonna use it. Unarmored movement adds some more speed from your cuz, making you faster when you're not wearing armor. You also get key points you can use to do cool god stuff like Step of the Wind, dash or disengage as a bonus action with doubled jump distance, a solid alternative if you run out of Misty Steps. Patient Defense lets you dodge as a bonus action, giving enemies disadvantage on attack rolls against you, and you have advantage on dexterity saves in case some skeletons start tossing bombs at you. Finally, Flurry of Blows lets you unleash the full power of Malphon with 2 unarmed attacks instead of 1 as a bonus action, which also pairs with Hunter's Mark. You could really do some damage with Hunter's Mark as a monk. Third level monks can choose a monastic tradition, and if you're sick of monks on the channel, I'm sure you're really sick of Kensei monks on the channel, but we we need the powers of the gods. And the Way of the Brush gives you calligraphy proficiency, so it's the only thing we could possibly do. There's also Kensei weapons, letting you pick another dedicated weapon basically, one ranged and one melee, and the ranged option can be a longbow, so now Coronacht is a little bit stronger. With this you can make a Kensei shot, using a bonus action to add a d4 to your ranged attacks for that round, as long as you get the timing right and use a Kensei weapon. Agile Parry lets you add 2 to your AC if you're holding a melee Kensei weapon and you make an unarmed attack as part of your action, so if you use your hammer shield, this will let you block with it. You also get to deflect missiles, letting you reduce incoming ranged attacks by 1d10 plus your dexterity modifier and monk level to fully deflect things and make your cousin proud. Your shieldy cousin, not your speedy cousin. You have a big family. It's a Greek thing. 4th level monks get an ability score improvement, and hey, let's talk about a bunch of feats you could take depending on the build because, you know, this one's pretty customizable. Charger lets you attack as a bonus action after you make the dash action and adds 5 to the damage if you want to put some extra attack on your dash or some dash on your attack. You can also shove people 5 feet further if you try to shove them. The tough feat gives you 2 HP for every level you have and every level you get if you'd rather just have some centaur hearts than boons. Dungeon Delver gives you advantage on perception and investigation checks to find traps. You have advantage on saving throws for traps, resistance to damage from traps, and can look for traps at a normal pace if you want your feet to stay red for the normal reason and not because they're bloody. Crossbow Expert lets you fire a crossbow multiple times in a round without reloading. You can fire creatures within melee range of you without disadvantage, and fire a hand crossbow as a bonus action if you're feeling like the railgun is more your speed. It's not my cup of tea personally. Poisoner lets you ignore resistance to poison damage with your attacks. You could coat your weapon in poison as a bonus action, and you can make a number of poison doses equal to your proficiency bonus with an hour of work, forcing a constitution saving throw of 14 on creatures you hit with a weapon coated in it, dealing 2d8 poison damage to those that fail if you want to hang over on your sword. Sharpshooter lets you fire at maximum range without disadvantage. You can ignore all but full cover and take a -5 penalty to your attack roll to add 10 to the damage roll of a ranged weapon attack. This is useful for Coronacht or Exograph. Finally, Warcaster lets you cast spells with both of your hands occupied to shoot spells out of your bow. You can make a spell attack as an opportunity attack, and you have advantage on concentration saving throws. I want to clarify, you can only take one of these per ability score improvement, or you can do what I'm doing here and grab +2 dexterity for better attacks with all your weapons. It's simple, but it's clean, and y'all know I like Kingdom Hearts. I almost forgot Slow Fall, which lets you reduce falling damage by 5 times your monk level as a reaction. The reason everything you're escaping from is flat is because your dad knows you could just reduce the damage. Why would he set up any falling traps? 5th level monks get an extra attack, letting you make 2 attacks instead of 1 with your action and up to 4 with a flurry of blows. Pro Hades tip, the enemies can't hit you if they're dead. Focus up on one of them with Hunter's Mark and cut down the number of baddies on screen. Stunning Strike lets you force a constitution saving throw on creatures you hit with a melee attack or an unarmed attack, stunning them until the end of your next turn if they fail, and it only costs 1 key point for a little jolting. Your monk die also bumps up to a d6 here. Most of your weapons already did that or more, but it will help with the hammer, shield, or the gauntlets. 6th level monks get to take on all of the Furies of Hell with magical attacks thanks to magical Kensei weapons and key empowered strikes, making your Kensei weapons and unarmed attacks magical. It's pretty self-explanatory. You can also pick another weapon to be a Kensei weapon to do Kensei stuff with, and you can do Deft Strike, which lets you add your monk die and damage to 1 attack per round with a key point with one of your Kensei weapons. Just put a little extra oomph on there. All the gods have boons that boost damage. 7th level monks get Stillness of Mind, letting you remove an effect of charming or frightening as an action. Your dad is very scary. He can also be kind of charming, but more in a you ate this fruit, now you have to live here forever, but also I'll be nice to you because I kind of feel bad kind of way. Not really going to work on you. But now frightening won't either. You also get evasion, so you can take half damage on failed dex saves and no damage on successful ones. Asphodel is just one big fireball. It's dex save city, and you're the mayor. Well, you're the mayor's kid at least. 8th level monks get another ability score improvement. Do you want one of those feats I talked about earlier? Okay, I'm not going to stop you, but I'm going to grab 2 more dexterity because I found the best way to get out of the underworld is hitting enemies harder and more often than they hit you. The Greek word for that is yet yud. We'll bounce back over to cleric now since you've got some speed and get more boosts from our family. 2nd level clerics can channel divinity. All clerics can turn undead, forcing a wisdom saving throw on undead creatures and forcing them to dash away if they fail. This isn't quite something you can do yet, but it actually becomes something you can do later. Tempest clerics get destructive wrath, letting you ignore rolling with lightning or thunder damage and instead just deal the maximum amount. Thunderwave could work, so could your Thunder Revenge. But 3rd level clerics get a better option since they get 2nd level spells, and Tempest clerics get Shatter for free, forcing a constitution saving throw on creatures in a 10-foot radius, dealing 3d8 thunder damage to those that fail, half as much to those that succeed, or just 24 flat thunder damage with a channel of your divinity. Inorganics and structures have disadvantage, so breaking down your dad's lair is an option if you just, want to spite him. Spiritual Weapon conjures a weapon of force that deals 1d8 force damage. You can move it and make attacks with it as a bonus action on your turn. It hangs out for a minute if you want to send out some spinning blades. It doesn't require concentration and scales up really well. It's one of my personal favorite spells, a truly legendary boon. Prayer of Healing takes 10 minutes to cast, but heals 2d8 plus your casting modifier to up to 6 creatures if you and some buddies want to hang out by a fountain. Finally, Lesser Restoration lets you remove an effect of disease, poison, paralysis, deafening, or blinding. Rats and satyrs are nasty. Don't fight them without knowing where the healing fountain is in the room. 4th level clerics get another ability score improvement. I'm going to go for Wisdom myself. It makes you harder to hit and it will make your boons better. It's just a really solid investment, like going through a Shadow Point door instead of Coin door on early runs. 5th level clerics can learn 3rd level spells, and boy howdy do Tempest clerics like their 3rd level spells. Call Lightning lets you call lightning. If you've got a 100-foot ceiling above you, it creates a 10-foot high, 60-foot radius cylinder while it's up. You can use your action to rain down some of your uncle's bolts, each one forcing a dexterity saving throw in a 5-foot radius, dealing 3d10 lightning damage to those that fail, half as much to those that succeed. Or with a channel of divinity, just 30 lightning damage. Big boom. If it's already storming, you deal another d10 of lightning damage. Speaking of storms, Sleet Storm is a storm, forcing a dexterity saving throw on creatures in a 20-foot radius, 40-foot high cylinder. Failing that, they fall prone. The area is also heavily obscured, difficult terrain, and forces concentration saves on casters inside for up to a minute depending on your concentration. Granny Demeter likes to make things worse for people who mess with her favorite little baby boy. There's also a ton of regular cleric spells you could add to your list here, so let's get into it. Bestow Curse lets you curse a creature with a couple of options, maybe giving them disadvantage on ability checks or saving throws of a certain type, maybe giving them disadvantage on attack rolls against you, maybe making them do a wisdom saving throw in their turns to avoid doing nothing, or maybe just taking an extra d8 of necrotic damage when you hit them with a spell or attack. Doom is a fun effect, but they could always pass the wisdom save, so maybe invest in this when you get the chance. Boost the rarity of future boons, Beacon of Hope lets you give creatures of your choice advantage on wisdom and death saving throws, and they restore the most HP they can from any healing they get. Demeter isn't just about cold, she's also about survival. But if you want the cold, Spirit Shroud lets you add a d8 of radiant, necrotic, or cold damage to your attacks against a creature within 10 feet of you. They can't heal when you've hit them, and you slow their movement by 10 feet per round. It all lasts for a minute depending on your concentration, and it can also be bumped up by a d8 every 2 spell slots you spend. With Flurry of Blows, this can deal some bonkers damage by the end of this. It's really not as chill as the chill effect should be. For some more Athena action, Protection from Energy gives a creature resistance to acid, cold, fire, lightning, or thunder damage for an hour. There's a lot of fire floating around your dad. I recommend fire. Spirit Guardians lets you surround yourself with some benevolent angelic forces in a 15-foot radius. It halves the speed of hostile creatures and forces a wisdom saving throw on them, dealing 3d8 radiant damage if they fail. Picture a bunch of shields floating around you, smashing people up. It could look like that. We're also going to grab 2 more spells of the basic Zagreus that isn't from God's Sending. Lets you send a message to a creature somewhere on the same plane as you, or even to another plane with a 5% failure chance. Sometimes there's no dialogue when you get a boon. That makes me sad, but it's understandable. Speak with Dead lets you ask a dead person up to 5 questions, but then you run out of dialogue options until your next go. Achilles has an X, and I want to know about it, but I don't want to read the Iliad. If the Iliad is so good, how come it isn't a roguelike? 5th level clerics also jazz up their turn undead, fully destroying undead of challenge rating 1/2 or lower that fail a wisdom saving throw. This will let you call in some favors from some of your exes or current romantic partners, depending on how far you are in the game. 6th level clerics get a duo boon from Poseidon and Zeus thanks to Thunderous Strike, letting you push a creature of large or smaller 10 feet when you hit them with lightning damage. It's so fun that all of Poseidon's abilities push enemies, and that bosses are immune to it. So unless you get the one boon that makes pushing effects hit bosses for extra damage, you just do nothing to them. Still reeling from that rough Poseidon run, I'm sorry. 7th level clerics hit 4th level spells, and Poseidon actually gives you a pretty cool one with Control Water, letting you control water in a 100-foot area. Flooding it, parting it, changing the flow, or the coolest option, making a freaking whirlpool. It takes a second to explain, but hey, all I need to get more footage for this video is to do another run of Hades, which is like my favorite game I've played in the past 5 years, so we're good. The whirlpool is 5 feet wide at the base, 50 feet wide at the top, and 25 feet tall. It pulls creatures in 10 feet, forcing an athletics contest against your spell DC. Every creature inside has to make a strength save or take 2d8 bludgeoning damage, half as much on a success, and they're not caught in the wave. It's a big AoE if you're fighting someone in the ocean. Sequel idea, Poseidon. You play as Odysseus, and each new area is an island. on your way home. I had to read the Odyssey in high school. It wasn't a roguelike. I was very sad. I want the next generation to have it better. Ice Storm lets your granny deal some damage, creating a cylinder of ice with a 20-foot radius, 40-foot height, forcing a dexterity saving throw on creatures inside, dealing 4d6 cold damage and 2d8 bludgeoning damage to those that fail, half as much to those that succeed. It's a good call. Get it? Good call. Sorry, this video is long. I should stop making puns. For your normal cleric spells of choice, it's time to defy death with the spell Death Ward, which lets a creature hit 1 HP the first time they should hit 0 HP sometime in the next 8 hours. Get more spell slots, get more death defies, or deal more damage. It's almost like you're the one choosing how you want to play. That's actually it for 4th level spells. Kind of a short list compared to 3rd level at least. Maybe grab a few more 3rd level spells and upcast them. Why not? 8th level clerics get a lot. Starting with an ability score improvement we'll use to cap off our wisdom modifier, or at least I will. I like better stats. You know, this build is just like every other one of my builds. You can absolutely change it up at home and absolutely should. I can't arrest you if you change something. You also get Divine Strike for Tempest clerics. That means once on each of your turns, you can add a d8 of thunder damage to a weapon attack for some more Zeus boon time. Tasha's Cauldron of Everything also added Blessed Strikes if you'd rather just use a d8 of radiant damage for some more Athenian smiting. And you can destroy undead of challenge rating 1 or lower now. Again, very busy level. Almost as busy as the 9th level of cleric, where we'll get 5th level spells. From the Tempest domain, you can grab Destructive Wave, forcing a Constitution saving throw on creatures within 30 feet of you, dealing 5d6 thunder damage and 5d6 radiant or necrotic damage as well. I'm not totally sure why Poseidon's waves should be doing, but I'm guessing the things you fight in game will be worse at handling radiant damage. I'd go for that. You also get Insect Plague, but there isn't a bug god in the game, so I'm skipping that. This video's already long. For your spells of choice, Legend Lore lets you know more about a person, place, or thing of legendary renown. The more you know about it, the more you can learn. Achilles spent a lot of time making those spark notes for you. The least you can do is skim them. Holy Weapon just upgrades your weapon, adding 2d8 radiant damage to all the hits, and you can send it away with a bonus action, forcing a Constitution saving throw on creatures within 30 feet of you, dealing 4d8 radiant damage to those that fail, blinding them if they fail as well. But I just keep it on there for some regular extra oomph. It's very important to stay regular. 10th level cleric is another reason we took cleric, since it lets you directly call your family members with divine intervention. You say, hey God, I need help, and you roll a d100. If the roll is less than your cleric level, your god will intervene in a way your DM sees fit. Artemis's is pretty good. I recommend that one. If you succeed, you do have to wait 7 days before you can try it again, but if it fails, it only takes a day. You know, you're not needy if they didn't answer. 11th level clerics can learn 6th level spells. Planar ally is pretty vague. You ask a god for help, they come in and help out. Somehow. Maybe they'll want money. Maybe they won't. Basically, you tell your DM you dropped a 6th level spell and you want something to happen. It's kind of a weird one. Blade Barrier lets you pop the ultimate Ares ability, creating a wall of swords 20 feet high and 100 feet long, or a ringed wall that's 60 feet in diameter, forcing a dexterity saving throw on creatures in that area, dealing 6d10 slashing damage to those that fail, half as much to those that succeed. You know how you can push people a lot? Push people into the blades. That's some inter-god synergy. The Greek gods are famous for their collaboration and camaraderie. Your Destroy Undead also works on creatures of challenge rating 2 or lower now, so, you know, your X's are getting a little stronger. That's good. Our capstone is the 12th level of Cleric for one last ability score improvement or a feat. I'm grabbing the tough feat. You've gone through so much at this point. You deserve 40 more HP. Alright, now that we've built Zagreus right, let's talk about building him wrong, and by that I mean just other options. First, Rogue. You're from a roguelike after all. That would give you sneak attack for a backstab. You'd get some dashing and disengaging options, but we're already pretty limited on skills and spells anyway, so you'd have to drop a couple of levels of cleric. Other idea, just focus on one god. Trickery domain would be great for Dionysus, war would be great for Ares, peace for Aphrodite, forge for Athena. All of those are great options. If you have a favorite god and just want to stick with them using their little tchotchke, I get that. Celestial Warlock would also be a solid option, though it doesn't give you much variety beyond radiant and fire damage, and the god that would give you fire damage is the one you're trying to, you know, kill. Mixing Hexblade Warlock with Holy Solely would be pretty solid. You could focus solely on charisma, use Elemental Weapon for a variety of weapon boons, and still be pretty hard to hit with a bunch of Hexblade shenanigans. Check out my Vanitas video if you want to know about that. The big issue with that is you hard commit to your spells and can't switch them out until you level up. Wild Magic Barbarian wouldn't help you with ranged weapons or cast things or pick what boons you get. It's a very chaos focused build for this. For Artemis, you'd probably just want a hard focus ranger, maybe get magic missile from somewhere. It doesn't seem like a lot of damage, but it's very accurate. There isn't really a cold focus subclass other than Draconic Soul of Cold, so that's how you do a Demeter solo run. For Hermes, I've done a bunch of speedsters, check out Sonic or the Flash. That should cover just about everyone, but remember, I made this build to get powers from all of the gods that are as easy and flexible to mix and match as possible. That's why we went Tempest. Tempest covers Zeus, Dionysus, Demeter, and Poseidon. Anyway, now that we've hit level 20, let's figure out how viable this build is. First, variety. If you think Cleric is just the healing class, I hope this build is showing you how much other stuff you can do. I can't really even quantify all the stuff you can do with every combination of spells you can do. You can also be a very hard guy to hit with 20 base AC, 22 with Shield of Faith, or 24 with an agile parry after Shield of Faith, which should make it easier to get out of your dad's house. Finally, your damage is consistent with magical attacks, ranged and melee weapons, extra attack, and things like Hunter's Mark, Holy Weapon, and Spirit Shroud to put some extra stank on all of your attacks. For weaknesses, you're not very smart, and low intelligence could be an issue for religious adventures. Your spell list is also loaded with concentration, and you can only have one spell up at a time. Oh, and you're really bad at concentration with low constitution. But what if we invested more in Constitution? We'd actually have more health. Hey, we could actually grab the Warcaster feat and never drop Concentration. We'd have to sacrifice Wisdom or Dexterity, so we'd be worse at casting or fighting with weapons. Let's drop the casting, focus on the spells that don't require a modifier. And since those 6th level spells aren't super important, we'll do a 2-level Rogue dip, but then we wouldn't get the Blade Barrier shoving combo. It's so fun. Never mind. Drop the Dex, buff the Wisdom. Then get the Shield Master feat, so you can shove as a bonus action. Oh, but shoving requires strength. Okay, so we're gonna drop the Monk level, switch to Fighter. That gives us more ability scores, meaning that we can use the Charger feat for something for even better shoving and pushing people into the blade wall. But that doesn't work on the larger foes, so that won't work against bosses. Okay, you know what? We're gonna be here for a while. I feel like I could just do this over and over and over again forever, never actually be done. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, subscribe for more. We make 2 videos every week. Join the Patreon for this sheet and a whole bunch more, and sub to Tulok and Mango for more Tulok fun.